Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about the most anticipated 2023 Hellfire Gala issue, written by Jerry Duggan. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, the fall of X has officially begun with this issue, for the Hellfire Gala was always seen as the biggest event of the season, but this year everything will change for Krakoa. What is meant to be mutantkind's biggest night will become their biggest nightmare as the fall of X begins. All your favorite X-Men are going to be left reeling after this one. They will have shocking revelations, stunning betrayals, horrifying tragedies, impossible deaths, and of course the most glamorous looks of the year, all while setting the tone for the year to come. So with that said, this annual issue of the Hellfire Gala starts with a flashback that takes place several weeks before the event. And when we get there, we see Cyclops and Emma discussing Scott's hesitation in revealing the truth to Miss Marvel about her being a mutant. But in the Spider-Man comics, Miss Marvel's highly publicized death made the choice a little easier. So on the next page, we see her emerging from a Krakoan egg with Charles and the Five welcoming her to the island. It was revealed by Hope that Miss Marvel is both a mutant and an Inhuman at the same time, which was previously thought to be impossible. As the reality of the situation set in, a voice called out to Miss Marvel from a distance, which so happened to be her old friend, Cyclops, a former teammate who served alongside her on the Champions team in a past comic book line. But anyway, when he entered the room he was accompanied by Emma Frost, who also shared a brief history with her due to an Infinity Stone storyline. So, as you may have guessed, Miss Marvel had a whole lot of questions about what was going on, ranging from how she was a mutant to begin with, to what led up to her dying. But both Cyclops and Emma let her know that all that would be solved in due time, but first, she must prepare for the Hellfire Gala, with a new suit. And as for her mutant abilities, that is still yet to be seen, because her enlargement powers comes from her being an Inhuman. So with her newfound revelation of being a member of mutantkind, Emma Frost saw an opportunity to capitalize on this situation by having Kamala announce herself as a proud mutant as a political move. Because of all the public losses, mutants and human relations are at an all-time low. But still, there were reasons for hope if you knew where to look. So after months of hard work, the gala was on and ready to foster better interspecies relations. So with that said, the 5-in-1s served as the hostesses of the night and announced that this year's theme of the gala is friendship and futurism, and on this night, everyone involved will take the opportunity to further bond. For the mutants, welcome their human friends, ambassadors, and honored guests whose lives have been made better by Krakoa's medicines. And they hope their stories of health and happiness can dispel the disinformation that is spreading about Krakoa by their enemies. And they also went on to say that Krakoan age began with a gift of fruit from mutant technology, the drugs of the mind and body grown from the seeds of our living island home, and those gifts have given life-changing medicines for millions of our human friends. So tonight, they will elect another team of X-Men, but see they also wish to discuss a deeper partnership with humanity and show everyone the steps they're making to correct where they have stumbled. The mutants surprised the humans at their first gala with the terraforming of a dead world, and tonight, Forge, the X-Men technopath, will unveil their latest gifts. A gift that will help solve the housing shortage and food insecurities that plagues those most in need. Because what Forge has effectively done was create the city of the future. So with the agenda set and the expectations made, we jump over to Scott and Jean overlooking the greeting. And as the two look on, we see that they receive an alert from the treehouse, the same alert that went off during Free Comic Book Day, when we saw the Captain Krakoa suit stolen. So as of right now, we have no idea who did it, but all we can assume is the thief behind it is up to no good. So with Cyclops racing off to deal with the issue, we see Juggernaut arriving on the scene to have a conversation with Jean, because he would like to thank her personally for everything she has done for him. Because throughout the Krakoan era Juggernaut has done the hard work and walked the long path to redemption. And because of that Jean lets it be known that this year's X-Men team will need a powerhouse among their ranks, and he should submit his name as a candidate. So with that out there we see Katie Pide overlooking an argument between Destiny and Mystique, which I think will play a role in the future. Because up to this point, the two women were inseparable until Lady Righteousness showed Mystique a file from the future. So following that small interaction, we see Kamala having a conversation with Charles, and the nature of this conversation was that they was talking about what it means to be a mutant, and how Kamala doesn't feel comfortable about coming out about her abilities quite yet. But see, that's the craziest part about this whole thing, because Kamala has no idea what her mutant abilities could be. Because Charles believed the reason why her power didn't manifest was because she was hit by the Inhumans mist before she could change. Now, the reason why this is the case is because usually, whenever a mutant comes in contact with the mist, they die immediately or have an adverse reaction. So because of that interaction with the mist, Kamala Khan's powers may never manifest, and if it does, it may take longer. So because of all that information, Kamala feels a little overwhelmed about what she is getting herself into. Because right now in her life, a lot is going on. And with this on top of everything, it makes her feel a little bit cornered. So Charles tells her to take her time and come out when she is ready. And at that moment was when Rasputin 4 comes in to whisk Kamala away. Because according to Rasputin, Kamala Khan is her biggest hero, and she refers to her as the human, the Muslim, the mutant, the inhuman, and the savior of all 4 tribes. So with that little piece of information given, I can only assume that Kamala Khan's power would be something out of this world to grant her such a title. But anyway, following that part of the story, we see Magic having an interaction with some uninvited party guests. And on these guests, she can smell magic all over them. So she goes on to tell them that this party is invite only and they are not on the list. So the stranger counters her with, he comes and goes as he likes, and he knows that she knows what he is talking about, which was a reference to Magic's ability to teleport. Because he, much like her, can smell the magic on her, so with that statement, he follows up by asking her if he can ask her a question. Which she replies by saying make it quick. So with a hint of curiosity, the stranger asked Magic if it was true that Magneto told the world leaders that the mutants will be their new gods now, which Magic proudly confirms it, by saying that's damn right. So as the man turns and walks away, Magic couldn't help but to stop him and ask, why does it matter to him? So out of professional curiosity, he replies by saying, the reason is because he works for the old gods of this world, and then continued to walk away. Now once again, much like every Hellfire Gala before this one, these small interactions usually foreshadow bigger events and storylines for the future, and I must say that the ones that were hinted about thus far in the story really caught my attention. With the drama between Destiny and Mystique heating up, to the mystery behind Kamala's future victories, as well as this talks about old gods coming back into play, is setting the stage for some really good reading in the future. So with that said, we see a conversation between Captain America and Prodigy about how Wilson Fisk is now a citizen of Krakoa and granted asylum because of his marriage to a mutant. Now, as you may have guessed, Sam isn't too happy about this term's events, but there's nothing he can really do about it, so as the conversation goes on, the Avengers get an alert about a situation in DC, so, of course, they rush off to save the day. But while they all are rushing off to do their thing, Rogue also gets an alert as well, much like the Avengers did. But hers is in regard to Captain America needing help, so just like we saw in Free Comic Book Day, she rushes off to save her friend in need. So with the Avengers plus Rogue gone, the overall security level dramatically drops to a lower level, but of course, the day must continue as planned, for Jean Grey approaches the center stage to announce the moment everyone was waiting for, and that was the reveal of this year's X-Men team. Because when Jean and Cyclops left the Quiet Council, they formed the X-Men team to serve as an example for anyone who wanted to use their gifts for good, and to ready the next generation of heroes for the challenges of the world that, despite it all, still hates and fears them. So with that said, Jean announced that Synch and Talon are ready to lead a new team of X-Men, because both she and Scott are stepping back. We trust them implicitly to continue to save lives every day and to be an inspiration for us all. And as for the names of the rest of the recruits, the Step Cocos counted up the votes and announced the names as followed: Cannonball, Frenzy, Prodigy, Dazzler, Jubilee, and Juggernaut. For each of these candidates had the makings of an astonishing X-Men team. But unfortunately, fate had other plans, as Nimrod came crashing down on the new team, sending bones, blood, and body parts flying everywhere. And the way Nimrod pulled this off was by avoiding detection by orbiting the Earth and descending from the thermosphere at a terminal velocity. A velocity that would have killed everyone at the Hellfire Gala if it wasn't for Jean Grey bunting the shockwave with her telekinesis. So with several of the new team dead on arrival, Nimrod continued to brutally stump Jubilee before heading into battle. So with Orchis officially on the attack, Psylocke yelled for magic to teleport all the humans and the Five to safety. But what the mutants weren't aware of was that Orchis had been planning for this night for years and used every tool at their disposal by controlling the messaging about Krakoa and its dangers in the media. But see, that wasn't it, because they also was able to depower magic by poisoning her with nanotechnology that inhibited her X gene back in issue number 2 of X-Men, so because of that, there would be no easy escape from this ambush. So with nowhere to run, Bobby dived head first into battle with Nimrod, and for a period of time, Iceman was going the distance, laying blows upon blows on the robotic menace, which was to be expected due to his Omega level status. But despite his display of power, Bobby still fell short of victory. Because Orchis planned and drilled this scenario countless times, so Nimrod had something specially prepared for Iceman. Because leading up to this point, Orchis has executed a divide-and-conquer plan against their enemies. The first step was to launch a false flag attack in DC in an attempt to assassinate Captain America and to draw away the Avengers, and the other was to take out the Omega-level mutants like Bobby. So Nimrod did just that by jabbing a blade directly into Bobby's body, ending the fight. Because through this strategy, success would only be measured in corpses, which was exactly what happened to Iceman as he melted into a puddle of water and blood. So with Nimrod killing Omega-2, Bobby, he then turns to face his next target on his list, Omega-1, Jean Grey. But before it could attack, Jean Grey launches Juggernaut and a fastball special directly into Nimrod like a hypersonic bullet. So with Nimrod distracted, Jean Grey began to coordinate the defenses, but she didn't have long, because the rest of Orchis' forces were inbound. Now previously, just a single Stark Sentinel had nearly succeeded in killing the X-Men, but now they will have to face them all. And the only thing that is keeping a straight-up massacre at bay was Sync's power to mimic Polaris's ability to maintain a force field around the base. So as that was going on, Dr. Stasis and Omega Sentinel arrived dancing through a portal and confronted Professor X, and then offers to show him what he was able to accomplish by allowing him to read his mind. Because while Charles's attention was divided during the previous Hellfire Gala, Stasis was working very hard in the Krakoan pharmaceutical factories, and after flipping a few switches, he was able to change the medicine into a backdoor kill switch. A kill switch in which they can frame and blame the mutants for mass human deaths. And the way they went about demonstrating it was by having MODOK activated and having a few of the guests kill themselves just to prove a point. So as some of the guests jumped to the death, Orchis troops arrived through the portals and opened fire. Because the Krakoans' medicines weren't the only thing they hacked, because they also were able to hack the transportation system by getting the key from horticulture. So with every second passing by, the noose around the mutants' next tightens, but to be fair, they were putting up one hell of a fight. With mutants like Katie Pride using her phasing ability, she was able to disrupt the Sentinels, which caused them to crash to the ground. And for a moment, it looked like the mutants had managed to turn the tide with Exodus blasting his way through targets. And as for the Five, they were the cornerstone of the success behind the Krakoan era, and on top of that, they were a formidable team in their own right. Because mutants like Produce could transmute metal into glass. And to be honest, Orchis would have lost the night if they were playing fair. And when it comes to powerhouses, Rasputin 4, she is basically an entire team of X-Men in one body, and with the help of Miss Marvel the Sentinel before them put up little resistance. So with it destroyed, focus shifted to Nimrod's battle with Juggernaut, and in a twist of events during one of Juggernaut's unstoppable rushes, Nimrod was able to force him back with a blast from his hand, and send him flying through the main support of the structure. Now on a side note, I'm not sure if this breaks the concept behind Juggernaut or not, because his whole thing is about not being able to be stopped once in motion. But somehow Nimrod was able to stop him in mid-step and push him back, with a blast from his hand. So let me know in the comments down below if this is or is not in line with Juggernaut's abilities. But anyway, the massive impact caused the building to collapse on itself, until Jean used her telekinesis to stop everything in its tracks. Everything was so still that you could hear a pin drop as Jean spoke quietly in everyone's mind. First, she apologized to their guests and ensured them that no one else will die this day, and then she turned her attention towards Orchis and told them to listen very closely, for tonight they chose a trespass against them with violence, and if they let go those thoughts, then they will be allowed to survive this day. But little did Jean Grey know, Orchis had another plan up their sleeves, a plan that was so secret that the details of it were even kept secret from Dr. Stasis. Because it takes a lot of careful planning to kill a telepath, because the assassin had to be ready to strike at any moment, either at Mutantkind Island or at the New York treehouse, depending on if Jean chooses to answer the alarm or not. For Moira X had everything she needed: patience, time, and an artificial mind that was immune to telepathy powers. And because she was able to sneak up behind her, she was able to stab Jean Grey right through her back in one fell swoop. But before taking out Jean, Moira already critically attacked Cyclops after walking into a trap. So with Scott defeated, Orchis then proceeded to burn down his treehouse. So with Jean quickly fading away, Moira reveals the blade she used to strike down Jean was coated with Blight's wool from Otherworld, which is fatal for mutants. Now the sight of Jean Grey struck down, detonated a bomb in the children of the atom, and every mutant launched themselves to war in the righteous fury, and if they were allowed to fight, victory would have been theirs, because the enemy wasn't strong enough to stop them. But in a turn of events, Moira took Charles hostage and put a blade to his throat, and told him to stop the mutants' attack now, or she will fill the airwaves around the world with MODOK's secret music, which would cause all the humans he helped around the world would die. So in the most stupid, idiotic choice, Charles did as he was told and ordered everyone to stop, for he had surrendered and dropped to the floor. And let me just say this right here and now, I usually try to keep my opinions out of the story as a whole, but this move right here was the dumbest thing Charles has ever done. So with the mutants frozen in place, Dr. Stasis delivers the terms of surrender, and it goes as follows: all the mutants must get the heck off of the planet, for they are a cancer, and this is a cancer surgery. Now initially, Charles told the doctor that he can never get all the mutants to just simply walk off world forever. But that was when Moira interfered and told him that he has no choice but to make them do it. For he was able to make them stop before, so this time he must make them walk, or every drop of blood spilled will be on his head. So with that established, they go on to inform him about the consequences. Which was, when the first time a returned mutant is found on Earth, they will kill 1 human, and then the second time they will kill 10, then 100, and then times the previous number by 10 again until all is dead, while still blaming the mutants for all of it. So with that out there, Jean with her dying thoughts contacts Firestar and let her know that Orchis has won. But despite their victory, Jean is thinking of the long game, and wants Firestar to go undercover in the ranks of the enemy, to fight from within. And the way she was going to go about doing that was by embedding Firestar within Dr. Stasis's mind. Now at first, Jean thought about just simply erasing Dr. Stasis's mind altogether, but embedding Firestar as a sleeping agent will be their best play. So with Firestar planted deep within his memories, we skip over to Charles putting his helmet back on, as he commands his X-Men to go. For he orders all the mutants of Earth to walk through the nearest gate to them. He orders them not to be afraid, because all will be made clear, but know that in doing this, they are saving many human lives, and perhaps that of their own. So across the world, mutants were ordered by Charles to walk towards the nearest Krakoan gateway. But some, like Nightcrawler, had been trained to resist such telepathic coercion and were employing Xavier's own Red Triangle defensive strategy. And on the Krakoan's archipelago in the Atlantic Ocean, something unexpected was happening. A user of arcane magic was playing her own game with her own rules. Because Nathaniel Essex copied himself and created Mr. Sinister, Dr. Stasis, and Orbis Stellaris. Now he did this because he wanted to dominate all life, and perhaps it was the love of his sick heart, but he also copied the visage of his wife Rebecca Essex and named her mother Righteousness and put her seat of power in the astral plane. And because she was one of the few people left with access to it, she was able to steal Krakoa and trap it within her lantern. So following that, we get a dialogue from Charles as the mutants are being exiled through the gates, and it went as follows: how much do we love mankind? Is it enough to stay away for a time? Yes, as long as necessary to protect them from evil. I can feel so many of you resisting, but please trust me now, this is the right thing to do. If you love them enough, we'll give them the distance they need right now. Although some people refused to leave, Charles ordered others to remove them by force. As the mutants were being forced through, Jean told Firestar to find out more about the poison on Moira's blade, as well as their plans, strengths, and weaknesses. She told her to get all the information she could to the Resistance, to whatever remained of them on Earth, for every mutant was now an X-Man. So as the reality of the situation set in, Firestar cried to Jean that she couldn't do this alone, and she had no idea how she would contact the survivors. But despite her concerns, Jean told her that she would be okay, and that this was what they trained her for, as well as the price they pay. Now in the beginning, Jean wanted to bring in other people to aid in this secret plan, but she was out of time, so she told Firestar that the survivors will find her, and when they do come, tell them the truth about her mission and never waver. So with that said, Jean said her final goodbyes to the two most important people in her life. First, she visited Cyclops in the ambulance where he was wounded. And while there, she expressed her love for him and he reciprocated, but unfortunately, she had no control over her fate. Next, she approached a dazed Wolverine, who was surrounded by the Orchis elite special forces. She ordered him to wake up because they had almost lost everything that night, but the fight was far from over. She also wanted him to know that she loved him, but needed him to do what he does best. So as Jean's life faded away, Wolverine went berserk and attacked the Orchis elite special force unit, overpowering them, for they stood no chance. So with Jean gone, we skip back over to the gala with Destiny entering the gate, saying this was our only chance, and that she was sorry because they must listen to Charles. Because in the end there will be so much death and destruction, and it all culminates with a giant X in the heavens, with the fall of the Krakoans. And when it came to the five, they had no chance, because Exodus forcefully pushed them all through the gateway in order to save them. But see, people like Mystique fought tooth and nail against Charles's control to the point where jumping out the window was a better option. So as her body smashes on the rocks below, the members of Orchis celebrate their victory with cheers. And on the side note, MODOK points out how the satellite images started to mysteriously show the Atlantic islands of Krakoa vanished off the maps, so to make sure the same thing doesn't happen again, MODOK deployed some sentinels to blockade the Pacific island. But anyway, getting back to the main story, Dr. Stasis points out how there were still a lot of mutants standing before him that resisted Charles's control, but Moira has her own solution for that problem, and that is finishing them off one at a time. But right before she could do it, Emma gave the command for everyone to wake up and grab hands with Lord, for she wanted her to teleport everyone out of there to safety. So with all hell breaking loose, Orchis members opened fire on the mutants, and even Moira attempted to take a stab at them but failed, because Lord was able to pull it off. She was able to teleport all the mutants to the basement of the New York City Hellfire Club alongside Wilson Fisk. But see, their safety came at a price, for Lord was struck in chaos of the battle. For she was shot several times in the teleporting process, so as she lay dying on the floor, everyone grieved their loss. So with the mutants retreating into a cold basement, we pick back up with a victorious Orchis celebrating their win, with Nimrod dragging in the body of a beaten, unstoppable Juggernaut. But when he got there, the first thing he noticed was Firestar standing with Dr. Stasis. Now this was something he didn't see coming, for he offered to take her out as well, but that was when the good doctors stopped him and stated that Firestar was feeding him information about Krakoa since before she was an X-Men, and now since Orchis is going public, she will be joining them full time. So with that out the way, we skip back to our rebels hiding and regrouping for round 2, because Emma was not about to let this insult slide, because she was planning to come back with a vengeance. And use one of her private gates to teleport back to the gala and give every Orchis member there a fatal stroke. But when she went to travel through the gate, something strange happened, for she walked straight into it, like it was a brick wall. So with the mutants unable to use the gates, they are now trapped and unable to reassemble, effectively scattering them to the winds. Now getting back to the gala, we see the human diplomats, politicians, and honor guests trying their hardest to negotiate with their captives for a safe release. But regardless of their pleas, Dr. Stasis let the frightened individuals know that their publicists had already released a statement saying every human at the gala was killed. And because he doesn't want to look like a liar, nor allow their secret to get out, he ordered his soldiers to open fire on everyone. And due to Orchis shock troops having psyblockers in their helmet, Charles was powerless to stop them. Instead, he did the only thing he could do, which was slip into the minds of each victim and hold each soul as a pass from their life, while ensuring that none of them felt any pain. But see, while he was distracted on doing that, the cold-hearted robotic Moira got behind him and placed her dagger under his chin and told him that she dreamed of this day, because everything that happened was his fault, and tonight will forever be known as the Mutant Massacre. Because Charles sold lace medicine and invited Nathaniel Essex onto the island where he almost ended all life on Earth. And as for his X-Men Green, they are now considered eco-terrorists. And as for his dream, that is dead, and humanity will cheer for us as we capture and kill every one of your kind. But that is when Charles replied by saying that he is ready. And just like that, Rogue comes crashing through the ground and ripped Moira directly in half, right before she could deliver the fatal blow. Afterward, quickly she grabbed onto Charles and peeled out, but not before recognizing Firestar as a traitor and telling her to sleep with the lights on. So as she dashed away, Rogue hugged the surface of the ocean and flew unpredictable patterns, for she knew the machines were in hot pursuit. And the only place she could think of taking him was to Steve Rogers, for he was reforming the Unity Squad. But as she was passing the Atlantic Ocean, Charles mustered his first words, because during his mental scans, Charles discovered something he didn't see coming. With great haste, Charles screamed for Rogue to take him to the island immediately because they're all gone. Their entire mutant family, everyone who walked through the gates, they were meant to go to Araco, but for some reason Charles couldn't reach them, any of them. All 250,000 mutants on Krakoa that he made walk through the gates at the party are now all dead due to him. So in his guilt, Charles cried out in pain as he continued to say he didn't know they did something to the gates. And now because of his actions he pushed them into a meat grinder and killed all of his people. So with all the anger in his heart, he tasks Rogue to go forth and avenge them, to avenge her people. So with that said, this year Hellfire Gala comes to a close with majority of the mutants lives. So let me just say this comic was a great read with so much going for it, but I do have some questions about how things was left off about certain characters, like Bobby, Iceman. Because as we all know, Iceman is set to have his own comic line following him, so with him dead and the 5 traveling through the death gates, I don't see how he will be resurrected. So down in the comment section below let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.